Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. At which point Adrian should turn to me and say, "Surely you can't be serious." And I'd say, "I am serious, and don't call me Shirley." Because that's the kind of mood we're in this evening. That's the kind of comedy we're talking about. The Zucker, Abraham's Zucker School of Comedy. Because we are going to be slabbing Police Squad.
Was Zucker so good they named him twice?
No, it's his brother. David, right. David was one and Jerry was the other one. Right. I don't know whether David did, but Jerry can. That's all I know. But before we go on to that, let me just give you a brief description of what the hell we're doing here, because nobody knows apart from us. Every week we alternately choose a comedy programme to watch or listen to, and then we have a chat about it. This is the bit that we're doing now. And hopefully it's of some interest to somebody somewhere. Although I notice we're getting very big in the United States, so howdy, or
whatever they say over there.
Whatever you guys say these days.
You guys. I think they say you guys.
If anybody wants me to come and stay over there for a couple of weeks in their house, I'm open to offers. I mean, to be honest with you, anybody in the UK, I'm open to offers. I'm just open to offers.
I've got one word for you: Airbnb.
Oh yeah. Between now and the end of the podcast, we'll play you a couple of clips of the chosen program. As I said, in this case, the shamefully only one series and 6 episodes of Police Squad. I mean, shamefully, because not least you'd have seen how it develops, or would you? More of that coming up later. And we'll give the program a mark out of 5, giving it a grand total out of 10 between the two of us. That's kind of roughly where we go. And we'll also give you some comedy news as well. And I pinged one across to you today just to have a look at, because I don't know whether you're a fan of this or not. The program that's been long running in the UK. It's one of my dreaded panel shows. So,
your favourite genre?
There'll be no tears from me, but they're just saying now, or they're suggesting. I don't know whether they're suggesting so that there's a big outcry, as Victoria Wood said. Everybody went. And then they'll bring it back a la Six Music kind of thing, as they did with the BBC Radio.
Oh yeah, keep it in house, very BBC centric.
Yeah, I'm kind of very sceptical to all of this now. But the news is that Mock the Week, the panel show that's been running for 17 years on BBC television, is looks like it's to come to an end.
Yeah, look, I don't dance on the grave of any show, do I? I mean, in the sense that. Whatever show, shows always find their own audience, particularly if they've been going 17 years.
Yeah.
I'm not pleased, but what was it going to do? Do 35 years, 75 years? It's going to stop some stage. You can't. I don't know that you can complain after 17 years. I mean, Dara O'Brien. Look, he is a wit, and he has wittily said, "Oh, look, Britain's finally run out of news." We get that joke, but of course, I think the production company themselves described it as an institution. I thought, aha, isn't that a bit of a clue?
Yeah.
That something satirical is an institution.
Yeah.
You can't. It's like having permanent revolution in Cuba, in the Communist Party. You can't have permanent revolution because last year's revolution can't be revolted this year. I don't evolve, I revolve. Anyway, misquoting our friend, who we can't mention for legal reasons. Okay, it's Alan Parkin. Are you with me on that? I mean, because for years, Radio 4 had a show called Week Ending, which is a great pun, which I don't think I got when I was a child, when it first started. Week, that's W-E-E-K. But sort of play on, did it have week endings to sketches or whatever? And that was, and you could say the same is true of anything that sort of fills that slot, like we have the Now Show. It's almost, not quite, and I'm not dissing it, but it's almost a contradiction in terms to have a regular satirical show, particularly on the BBC. The C stands for corporation. So you've got corporate satire. It starts with a contradiction, but then that doesn't mean it's invalid, and I haven't been pleased for it to be around. I have to say, no, I haven't watched it much. When I have, I think I've enjoyed it as far as it went, but it cannot go on for all eternity.
Do you think the blame lies with these kind of things? I always think when somebody complains about this, as Dara O'Brien has, in this particular case, with the quip and that we finally run out of news, you can tell there's a bitterness behind that. And I just wonder, is the mistake that was made is letting it run for 17 years in the first place?
Well, yeah, if they'd cancelled it after one series, yes, he would have. There wouldn't have been any Twitter to tweet on, but he would have had a witty line about that as well. But there wouldn't have been the same sense. I almost use the word entitlement. I'm never quite comfortable using that because I'm probably as guilty as anyone else of feeling entitled to certain things. But after a year, it wouldn't have become an institution, would it? And arguably, it could have been fleet of foot and a pleasant memory for all the viewers that found it and all of that.
I mean, to me, the one that should have died or should have been put out to pasture, I
think I know where you're going.
That didn't, and I don't understand why. I mean, if there was going to be a casualty of this type, I would have thought that it would have been Have I Got News for You?
I was going to say that. I introduced one of the first series as an announcer.
And you wore short trousers when you did it, didn't you? That's how long ago it was.
I virtually did. I was going to say that's 1991.
You wore your school blazer. I mean, it's ridiculous, to think
I've probably done this before. I had to do the apology to Jeffrey Archer. Never was my tongue more firmly in my cheek or my fingers more crossed. But so... But again, you're not going to like it because by definition you don't particularly like sort of panel shows or... What is so wrong with them? Well, we're on that. Just briefly, if you can, without getting too angry.
I don't get angry about it. I mean, I just kind of avoid them. I think it's because they are too formulaic. I mean, they're saying how great it is because it gives young comedians a chance. I think that was Dara O'Brien's point, wasn't it? That to be on the TV. If you look at the guest list, I mean, it's the same old people.
I was going to say, I mean, the production company, they obviously got the paperwork. They've totted it up to 130 comedians. But if you actually divide that up into 17 years, and also I'm sure some possibly only got one show and were shown the door. I don't know about that for a fact. I haven't analysed the figures. But 130 is actually not a massive figure for 17 years for however long the run was, if you carve it up.
Here's the curious thing, and there was no mention of it in any of the articles. And I went to different sources because I think this originated in comedy.co.uk, I think, or certainly that was the one that I saw. I think it was in the Mail and some of the newspaper websites as well. And I checked all of them. They'd all got kind of variations of the copy, hadn't they? Which is they just take the same press release and quotes and all the rest of it that everybody else is using. But none of them mentioned viewing figures. And it's quite interesting. This started out at about 2 million. It briefly hit approaching 3 million. And then it's just done over 1 million ever since.
Right.
Which you kind of think, well, it's a steady audience. I mean, I lose track. I don't know whether 1 million's good these days or whether it's poor. Or
I think these days it is. It kind of makes my heart sink a bit to think of that. And that... Do you know if that's a consolidated figure, including iPlayer? Getting into the nitty.
I don't know. I mean, it was the figure that they put on Wikipedia when they listed all the episodes and all the rest of it. So
probably consolidated, but yeah, I mean, it's a sad reflection. But at the same time, people love having a greater diversity, not only of channels and streaming services and so on, but other things you could be doing with your time. Playing Xbox or something.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the thing. You think that the demands for your attention are just purely televisual, but of course they're not, are they? That's the
for you. They're called 2 under 5s. Aren't they?
Well, that's permanent attention for my. I'm certainly when they're asleep that it isn't. But I just wonder whether this has got a chance to reinvent. And I was flicking through the TV channels the other day, and they showed a trail. For a remake, they've reinvented Cash in the Attic with Chris Kamara, the ex-footballer.
Blimey!
I mean, I'd have to rub my eyes and look twice. That's incredible, Jeff. You think I can't believe that they've put him on. I mean, he's great, he's funny and everything, but. So there's a good example of the reinvention of a program, and it's on a different channel now because Cash in the Attic goes to BBC One. Yeah. It's now on Channel 5. So it's not beyond the bounds, is it, to have it reinvented and for it to do something different?
Yes, and I'm quite sure whatever it does, it still won't get your eyeballs on it. But
Not if it's about. Do you get what I'm saying with the panel shows? I just don't.
They're on formulaic, but then I could say the show we're putting on the Slab and loads of other shows we put on are also formulae, using the plural there, but in a different way that presumably floats your boat and probably floats mine more.
Doesn't it have its own ability to be broad though as well? I mean, you're right. If you boil it down, it's a formula. But to draw comparisons, if you were going to say, is Henry the Ninth that we slabbed a few weeks back the same kind of thing as Only Murders in the Building? They're very different ends of the formula, aren't they?
They are. Yes, and it probably won't stand up in court. But I guess the analogy would be within Henry IX. Is there much variation week to week? I mean, whatever the formula is, I was perfectly happy with it. And by the way, I've watched all 3 episodes, a whole series.
Do you know? I'm glad I mentioned it. I was going to ask you that. Well,
I loved it. Absolutely brilliant. And it didn't feel wrong. It was beautifully shaped. It's Dick Clement and Ian Lafreniere, beautifully shaped so that it felt intentional that it was 3 episodes. Leaving wanting more, I definitely wanted more. But given it was 3, it didn't feel like it was severed halfway through the story arc. So there's a thing for a Unitarian like me who only normally watches 1 episode. You look like you're about to faint. I'm looking at you on Skype. You can't believe it, can you?
No, I'm just thinking I've got to watch the other 2 now because I hate the thought of you having that one up on me now. So.
Oh, I was assuming you had.
When I watched the series Henry IX...
I think you'll find, yes, about halfway through, there was a certain twist in the arc. And
anyway, shall we get on and do some slabbing for this? I
think we ought
for
to,
this week.
Yeah, it's what it says on the tin.
I mean, this is an old one, isn't it? Well, do you know what? It's really weird because I thought it was older than it was. Because it's kind of got a 1970s feel to it, hasn't it? But
it's referencing the previous decade, but 1982.
Well, I think it's actually referencing even earlier than that. I think the reference
60s, isn't it?
50s, I think, late 50s.
Oh, really? M Squad.
Lee Marvin and M Squad, yeah. I'll tell you.
Lee Marvin.
Remind me about that.
Is that before he painted his wagon?
Under a wandering star.
Just had an undercoat.
Yeah. Remind me about that because there's a fascinating thing on YouTube if you get the chance to watch it about M Squad. We'll come back to that one. So when I mentioned it last week, what were your thoughts?
Very up for it because bizarrely, although I was very aware of it, albeit that I'm never quite sure if it's Police Squad or Police Academy. We know it's the former now. I know it's the former, but I'll probably forget next time. But I knew of its existence. I'd even seen tiny bits of it probably at the time. And in my imagination, it loomed large, which is why, by the by, it's a huge shock to realise it only went to 1 series of 6 episodes. Because its place in the comedy cultural firmament, I think, is much bigger than that. And we'll get and see whether the quality of it merits that. But I was looking forward to it. And up for it.
Well, to paraphrase Frankie Howard, it's a cult. But yeah, so we'll delve in. Should we have a listen as well before we get a headline from you? So we have a clip. Quite an interesting one because, and again, I guess we'll talk about this in a second, but it's kind of got a lengthy and humorous intro that is different, slightly different every week. So we go through that. And in the same as M Squad, in fact, exactly the same as M Squad, our hero, Lieutenant Frank Drebin, tells his story or tells the story for that particular week as he's kind of doing whatever he's doing and then sort of heads off to Police Squad. So he finally gets over to the office and talks about the fact that there's been this protection racket going on in the city. And he gets back to the office. He talks to his boss, played by the wonderful Alan North, and he gets to interview the lady who has been a victim of these thugs when they come to strong armour at her business.
Jill, I'm Captain Drebin. Cigarette?
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm here to help you. Copy?
No, thank you.
Tea?
No.
Eclair? Rum ball? Tort?
No, really, thank you.
Jill, you've got to give us something to go on. Name, description, sounds, smells, shirt size, anything. Will you do that?
I really should go. I shouldn't be
Jill,
here.
I know you're frightened. These criminals, that's what they count on. Fear is their greatest weapon. Jill, if you help us, we'll put them behind bars for good.
I'm sorry, but I just didn't get a good look.
We can't let these vermin infest our city. We'll have a rotten, scum-sucking cesspool.
Oh, Frank, please. I'm trying to eat this tuna fish sandwich.
A rat-infested, worm-ridden, festering boil.
Oh, Frank, cut it out, will you? I'm talking to my mother.
I'm really sorry.
All right, Jill. I see I'm wasting my breath.
Interesting thing there, looking at the waveform as it went through, Ever the sound technician, you see, but we can hear, of course, very tuned in listeners will notice the pace, of course, is much slower. It's, it's 40 years old now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at these gaps go through, but it's also it's wonderful comic timing, Leslie Nielsen, all of that. You'll be wanting a headline, so you will.
Go on. And, the other thing about that is that I really struggled to find a clip that hadn't got heavy visual gags in it.
Yeah, a lot of those.
So there's a lot of
yeah.
stuff coming on, isn't there? And there's a lot of looks and things, and you kind of think, oh, I think that's where the gaps are as well when you watch the thing.
There's that, and those two voices, asking him to go easy on the imagery.
Yeah.
They were noises off.
Yes,
we didn't see the guy having this tuna baguette.
No, I'm having a tuna fish sandwich. It's very American.
Can I, at the risk of referencing someone we try not to reference, can I go with something like this tabloid headline? Police give me a second series. Police give it. It's not bad, is it?
I like what you did there.
Or police sell. I'm buying. I'm sold.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So, in other words, a thumbs up, enjoyable. Although at the same time, I speak with probably a forked tongue, which is that I'm back to Unitarian again. After this show, I felt I'm happy with that. I enjoyed it. I got it. But unlike Henry IX, which we slabbed the other week, I didn't feel any need to go on to other episodes. I'm sorry to say. But still, I maintain I'm surprised it didn't go further.
It's funny you say that because that's the one thing. I mean, we're talking about the formula and the format for these things. This is a little bit different in as much as it produced 6 standalone episodes, didn't it? So you didn't, you could have watched one and not thought, well, I've got to find out what happens next week, because what happens next week is just a single solitary story that's contained within those 30 minutes.
Do you think if it had an all-series story arc over the whole thing and left you on a cliffhanger, do you think it might have got the second series?
Well, they couldn't have done. I'll tell you 2 things about why. The first thing is there's an amazing video that somebody's done, and they acknowledge that they've heavily edited it.
Yeah.
But they've actually put Police Squad and M Squad side by side, and they have basically copied the script. I mean, we're not talking about...
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're not talking about this is based on something. They've actually, word for word, copied the script on the thing. And it's incredible to watch this because, I mean, they have literally copied the script. So they had to do the formula of M Squad, didn't they, really, in that sense?
Do you mean episode for episode?
Yeah. Yeah, they were copied. I mean, have a look if you put him into YouTube. If you put in Police Squad, M Squad, I think the video comes up, and they've done a split screen. They've done 2 of them side by side, and it's incredible.
That's amazing. But do you think it was all done with? Presumably, it had to have had permission, didn't it?
I don't know. I don't know how it worked, but
I suppose it's parody, isn't it? Well, certainly under UK law, you'd get away with it under parody.
Parody,
so you
yeah.
need permission.
I mean, I'll give you an example. In the one scene, in the straight version, in M Squad, they're carrying out the stretcher, but in the Police Squad, they carry out the stretcher, but it kind of goes on for about 25 foot. And so
that's stretching a gag, isn't it?
It's amazing to watch. The second thing is as well, and I did some research about why it was canned by ABC. That was the TV network that was involved with this. And their entertainment president, a guy called Tony Tomopoulos, He said, the reason that we cancelled it, you're going to have to listen carefully to this because this is TV exec speak at his best. The reason that we cancelled it was because, quotes, the viewer had to watch it in order to appreciate it. Oh, what the hell does that mean?
Do you want my favourite Channel 5 executive's quote in front of me in his office?
God, I dread to think, but go on.
It just lives with me forever. But it's like, if I told people, would they believe me? But anyway, we have this platform.
Were they the people who told you that they were going to change the announcer in front of you as well? Is that the same people?
No, funny enough,
God,
that was a different channel.
Brutal.
That's a great comedy callback to last week. No, in front of me, I was an announcer on this channel, but he said to me, and I thought, even then, even as part of the culture, I thought, they're not going to believe this at the pub tonight. And it was, Hitler's doing very well for us on Tuesday nights. I kid you not.
I know, yeah.
Hitler's doing very well for us on Tuesday nights. I thought, well, he might be doing well for you, but I prefer him dead and buried myself. Anyway, I'm trying to decode your, sorry to change the subject, went off topic, but trying to decode your executive, and this is not to excuse it, isn't the problem they're saying we couldn't attract the people to get to like it in the first place?
Well, you couldn't.
But that's marketing. That's what trailers are made for, and publicity.
Well, I read that they had the series of 6. They put 4 out over 4 consecutive weeks. And then they dropped it and put the 5th one out on a weekend and the 6th one out on the following weekend or something like that.
And then wondered why the ratings dove at the end.
Yeah, and then so they're like, kind of, I don't know why anybody watched it. It's really why didn't watch it.
Queer.
It's bizarre. How queer. So I don't think. I mean, for some reason they weren't committed to. I mean, having said that, I think David Zucker and Jim Abrams and Jerry Zucker were quite pleased about that because they were concerned that they wouldn't have enough material to go on to do another series.
Right.
But then they went to the longer format and they started making the Naked Gun movies.
Yeah.
And said that they were able to reuse a lot of the gags that they used in Police Squad on the Naked Gun films. Or a similar kind of humour, you know.
So where does Airplane fit in? Is this the year before this?
Yeah, I think it was the year before. They did Kentucky Fried Movie first, didn't they? I think, which was a kind of similar kind of thing again. So they did Kentucky Fried Movie, then Airplane, then Police Squad, I think.
Right. Because what I was going to say about sending up M Squad, I mean, it's an absolute gift for any comedy writers, comedians, and so on, for a series to take itself too seriously, because it just gives you a lower trampoline to bounce higher off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's probably a lame image, but you get the idea roughly. The more serious the original takes itself, the more you can send it up.
Yeah. And I think the idea that you're kind of working within that framework kind of worked well for them as well. It's like you were saying about, I think before we were starting, you were saying about William Shatner. All their guest stars were murdered in the opening credits, weren't they? In I don't know if you noticed that, if you knew that.
Kept it cheaper, I suppose. They didn't need them for so long.
Yeah, I mean, Lorne Greene was the guest star in episode 1. He was thrown out of a car and stabbed. George Stanford Brown had a safe dropped on top of him. Robert Goulet died by firing squad. William Shatner was poisoned, and the other one it's quite an interesting. He was supposed to be John Belushi, but he died before he was supposed to be underwater in cement shoes kind of thing. And he died in real life. Yeah, he died in real life before they could air it. And so they scrapped it and they got William Conrad to do a falling out of a car stabbed again kind of thing. So apparently it shook David Zucker and Jerry Zucker up so much because they were laughing with him about, what if you died in real life kind of thing, you know, we wouldn't forgive ourselves. And then about a month later, I think, something like that, 6 weeks later, he did.
Yeah, just looking at the dates there. He died on March the 5th, 1982.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's nothing like that to concentrate the mind. But
what about the mix of visual and written? How did that fare for you? Did you? Because there was a fair bit of visual in there, wasn't there?
There was. as ever, there's a bit of a danger of a spoiler alert, but I think people will still enjoy the show, or they can pause this and come back to it after they've watched it. But so obviously, yeah, we're series 1. Are we episode 1? No,
episode 5. We are.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're series 1 of 1, episode 5 here. They open up a locksmith's store, or rather reopen it, kind of thing, which itself is a joke. What I like, before I forget, and there's so many strands we could go down, but I like the fact that they start taking it seriously as a commercial thing.
That's the one guy does. The one cop does, doesn't he? He's thinking, what if we do a 2-for-1 offer? And all this?
But also Drebin, you see him working in the shop, and it's like it's become his life. and that's a joke that actually, unusually for this show, doesn't draw attention to itself. It's not sort of paraded and got spotlights on it and all of that rhythm.
Yeah.
It's quietly getting on with it, rather than being a cop, or rather than it just being a front for something, which it starts out as. Anyway, I was going to say that the gags, the visual gags, for instance, you've got keys on the back wall, and some terrible gags, really, quite unforgivable, including Florida keys,
Yes.
and then it goes on to turkeys, and there's a couple of turkeys.
And the next one's pot roast, isn't it?
Pot roast. I'm just nuts. You wonder how much they've been drinking while they were writing, but. And in a way, I kind of expected us to move on from those jokes, but of course they're static. And this is the early 80s. They can't do anything fancy, particularly with computer graphics or whatever. And it's questionable whether they would have done. But it's almost like those jokes, okay, I've moved on from those jokes, but I still see them up on the wall behind him the whole time, behind the counter. But that's a relatively small gripe. But your question was about the mix. I guess, it does lean much more towards the visuals, isn't it?
Well, there are lots of things in there as well, and I kind of got a little bit worried that I'm missing stuff, and you kind of think, do I need to go back and watch that scene again? And I'll tell you where it really sort of drew my attention. I think it was in the police squad offices. There was a couple of things. Did you see that on the glass door it said police squad, but police was the right way round. Sorry, the police was reversed, but squad wasn't.
No, I missed that one. There's so much. That's even watching it twice.
And then if you look on the clock on the wall, the numbers are in the wrong place. And you kind of think, how much more is in here? How much more have they put in this?
There's a hell of a lot that I missed. Then I have to confess.
And then there's the obvious ones like the Eiffel Tower is the view out the window and stuff like that.
I liked that because it just sat there, didn't it? It didn't do anything. No one reversed it. And we know they're not in Gay Paris.
But yeah, it's kind of like almost then it becomes a bit obsessive, and you think, am I enjoying this as I should be, or am I kind of getting a bit carried away with I've spotted another one, I don't know. But it's that kind of humour, isn't it? But my point is that it kind of just, because it's within a framework, it kind of plugs in every week. It can just plug in a different set of characters and a different set of things that will make you laugh. But I'm not sure how long. I'm not sure whether a second series would have been a great idea. I don't know. There's part of me that thinks not. There's part of it for me because I'd seen it and I've known it, and I'd watched it at length previously. I've watched those episodes more than once, and there's part of it kind of becomes like an old comfy pair of slippers, doesn't it? But there is a freshness to it. I just wonder, has it? If you were to do it now, I mean, is it aged well, do you think?
Two separate questions there, if I may tackle them separately, I think.
Go on.
Or are they separate? I'm now interrogating myself.
I did mean them as one, like if you did it now, has it aged well? If you did it now, would it be...
Have I aged? No, see, I've aged since you asked the question.
I've aged since the start of the podcast.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
I don't think it would work now because it it needs to have those previous shows to bounce off, and they're not. I mean, I hadn't heard of M Squad, so you could argue that either way. That I've managed to enjoy it without M Squad, but then when it's pointed out that it's a spoof, can I have another go at this? Take two. I'm digging a very big hole.
Let me just put it another way then. The answer's yes. No, let me just put it another way. I tell you what it reminded me of in the modern world was another one that we did Slab, the Goes Wrong show. It's got that kind of feel to it where it's a bit of slapstickery and a bit of verbal dexterity mixed together.
Yeah. What's that? Slapstickery.
Slap celery.
You've invented a new genre. Now I somehow I experienced that as a different thing, and yet somehow at the same time, I don't know. Look, there'll always be space for it, won't there? Lee Evans, I think we were talking about him only last week, and then referencing, as everyone did, Norman Wisdom. But they're generations apart. I mean, probably 2 generations at least. I think there's always a place for someone to revive something. So I'm never going to either dance on the grave of something or say that's absolutely it, any more than you could say that, referencing this very edition, that Mock the Week won't turn up somewhere else, or it might have a tweak to the name or a tweak to the formula, but it won't be far off. Things can always be revived, and what goes around comes around. But has it aged well? Well, I'm aware of its age. I think there's a bigger problem for me, which is that there's only so much you can do with those characters, isn't there? I mean, we talk, I'm always banging on about sitcom is really character com. And if there isn't the richness of characters, you can't put them relentlessly, repeatedly in different situations and hope to come out with a different result. Is that true? Yeah. Or am I talking nonsense?
No, I know what you mean. I think Leslie Nielsen brings as much to it, and there's a hint because of his putty face, and I suspect he's got proper acting chops. Must have done serious stuff. Oh, that's all he did
previously.
Up until this point. That's all he did. I mean, he said somebody said to him, "You know, you're never going to get offered a serious role again," and he said, "Yeah, I know." But kind of wanted to do that. Yeah, no, he'd been playing like the heavy, or you'd seen him in things like Columbo, playing a heavy or a villain. Yeah, I mean that's why it was even better in terms of casting. It was like inspired, because it's like, getting. That's a big one just gone past.
Jeez, that's World War III. I think that's off to Taiwan.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was inspired casting, because he was known for a convoy.
Sorry.
He was known for being a villain.
Yeah. Can I do a very brief name drop, which is only as brief as the actual duration of the incident, but I was there when Leslie Nielsen was rehearsing for Noel's house party, just to prove the point that he didn't do serious acting particularly afterwards. But he was wonderful.
That was mentioned. I think that's mentioned in Wikipedia, because they did a freeze frame ending, didn't they?
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
But I thought Leslie Nielsen was I only watched Noel's house party when I was working on it back in the day. I thought he was a recurring character on Noel's house party.
No, I think he was a one-off guest for that. But
oh, well, I'm even more lucky. I just happened to be wandering into the studio, probably to see a mate. And there he was, rehearsing.
Cool. I have to say, it's not all slapstick, is it? I mean, there was the wonderful line where he was asked, "Who are you and how did you get in?" And he said, "I'm a locksmith, and I'm a locksmith."
that was a good pair of lines, or at least the same line repeated.
Brilliant, isn't it? That really.
Yeah, and only he could deadpan like that.
Fantastic.
As if it wasn't a mistake.
No. Should we have another clip and let people have another listen as well? All right, so in this particular clip then, Lieutenant Frank Drebin is going to one of his usual sources. In fact, I'm going to say no more than he goes to one of his usual sources, as he does every week, Johnny the Shoeshine Boy.
What's the word in the streets, Johnny?
I hear a lot of things.
What do you know about Dutch Gunderson?
He grew up an orphan on the lower south side. His mother, a prostitute, died when he was only 3. He started stealing apples at the age of 6. Spent a lifetime in juvenile hall. all he's ever known is a world of crime. This doesn't excuse what he does, but I think we understand him a little better.
I got 20 asking for concrete evidence against Dutch.
I know none of this is admissible, Lieutenant, but I got some photostats of a couple business dealings that make your guy look pretty dirty.
Thanks, Johnny. It seems I've got a 3:15 appointment.
3 o'clock.
Well,
Can I admit to being a bit thick here?
Go on.
I didn't get the 3 o'clock correction.
Well,
Or am I overthinking?
he knows everything. So he said, I've got a 3:15 appointment. He went, 3 o'clock. And
Oh, I thought he'd read it off the photo stat.
no, it's
right.
just
I'm-
like he
I'm
knows
being doubly thick.
He knows everything that's going on. That's his.
That's brilliant. Apart from his lines, sadly, you were saying while that was playing.
Yeah, there's an amazing YouTube video of I don't know if it comes with one of the DVDs, but it's Police Squad bloopers, as they call them in the States. Yeah, he's in there. He's in actual fact the next bit of that scene is a fire chief comes in and says, "We've got a fire at so and so, Johnny. What can you tell me about it?" And he has to deliver quite a technical line saying it's okay until the fire reaches the polypropylene or something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And he can't get. He's like going, "I'm sorry." It's like it looked really serious business, and also Leslie Nielsen as well. You know,
What, Fluffy?
Yeah, Fluffy. The other clip we played actually, where he's trying to, he's trying to some scum sucking cesspit of a city, and
That is a rotten line. Though,
yeah, he can't get that, and he's like, but they do have a bit of a laugh about that. But yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's William Jewell playing Johnny the Shoeshine guy. I just like that conceit, and that is part of a formula. But it's a kind of, all right, who have we got this week? And you look forward to it. And the idea that a fireman can sit there while there is a fire raging, he gets his shoes shined and gets some information.
Gets his welly
and he's making notes as well. Isn't he? Oh, polypropylene. You say? See, I can't say it either. Fantastic.
Who does it? What's its legacy? I've really racking my brains about this. I don't know. You kind of think, well, you can, with a lot of things, you can say, oh yeah, we kind of went on to this kind of comedy then, and it almost doesn't have a legacy. It
doesn't have a legacy to stand on.
It doesn't, though. Can you think of anything that you would say, oh, well, that's the legacy of?
I have to be reminded, and I had to dig deep again. I'm always tempted to think that Airplane, the disaster send-up movie, follows this, but of course it's the other way around. But I can't blame myself too much, and neither would I blame anyone else who got that back to front, because normally the transition is TV to film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what confuses me. Just as in this country more, we go from radio to TV, and TV might go to the movies or might go to the States or whatever. But even that used to be the other way around. TV could spawn radio spin-offs back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know. Your question, it sort of sounds to me like it has to have a legacy to sort of earn its place at the table. But have I misinterpreted that?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, to me, it's one of the classics. But then, is that fair to say? If it just spawned more of itself and didn't really, I don't know. It's there used to be a thing. Do you remember Mad Magazine?
Yeah,
which used to do this kind of humour, and then there was a Mad TV, and I think maybe that was kind of where they were coming from. This kind of anarchic, the absurdity, but mixed with really decent jokes as well. I don't know. Yeah, it was just something that struck me. I just thought, does it have a legacy? Does it? Could you say yes, this is one of the classics, because without this, we wouldn't really have got to here?
I'm sure it'll be in the mix of things that we might not even relate to it ourselves. But sometimes, I mean, I'm always referencing Bill Hicks, but he in turn references Woody Allen, and I would never have linked him and his act to Woody Allen. So
yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it certainly spawned one of my favourite terms of endearment, schnooky lumps.
Which I have to say, I mean, I don't normally air my dirty washing, but you have used that term of me in a WhatsApp message only earlier today. So, my heart still goes pitter patter when I think of it.
Well, I must admit, it's been resting for some particular time now, because I've forgotten all about it. But it's a wonderful scene again, isn't it, where he's telling the lover of Dutch what to say. And and he calls him Schnooky Lumps via her, which I just love. I don't know.
She passes it on.
Should we put some numbers on it and find out what's happening for next week?
Is it my turn to go first? I really want to buy another 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, no worries.
Can I hide behind your tailcoat?
Yeah,
please?
I'm hovering. I'll be honest with you.
I thought I could see that on Skype.
Which is...
I thought it might be a network problem.
No, it's only because I've run out of cream. And
you see, that's Police Squad inspired.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I am... Oh, to hell with it. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I'm going to give it 4.5.
Ooh.
4.5 out of 5. I think
Lummy.
I think it's a classic. I really do. I think there's just something about it. I just love 4.5 for me. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, don't get all metric with me, you and your decimal points. In which case, I was hovering, but I that still small voice, the inner voice that probably means I've got to up my medication. I was talking about it last week. That said 4, and I didn't quite believe it again. It was the same thing as last week, but then I thought, no, believe the voice. And also, when I was tempted to mark it down to 3.5, I thought you were going to say 4. Now I'd look mean saying 3.5 after you. I'm going to say 4.
Oh, wow.
And people can say I'm corrupt and changeable with the passing winds.
Aren't we all?
And they'd probably be right.
Aren't we all? Do you know I have trouble with the passing winds as well? So I'm not going to. There's no.
It's not the only thing it's passing.
There's no way I would fault you for that. 8.5 out of 10 for Police Squad, which is a fabulous score, isn't it, really? Can I just mention it is a Paramount production? Weren't those days simpler, the 1980s?
They were. I didn't have to list 5 different things, but I still forgot to do it, so I'm so pleased you said it.
Can't believe it. In the United States, just a Paramount production. End of story. I've put a link in. Unfortunately, there's nowhere that I can discern at the moment that you can actually watch it in terms of streaming. I think you're gonna have to go pretty old school and buy it on DVD. Believe it or not,
or Edison wax cylinder, if you can find
exactly
early videos.
Yeah.
Super. So to get your other point, next week's homework, it's a classic. I feel I had to double check with you, Schnooky Lump, but we haven't done Steptoe and Son, have we? Before.
God, no, we haven't. No,
and that's a bit of a gap in the repertoire. I mean, it gives you a chance to dust off your Galton and Simpson references, or at least you interviewed one of them. So we'll revisit that next week.
Oh, do you know I didn't realise I interviewed Alan Simpson twice.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one have you forgotten?
I think it was for 2 different radio stations. That's why I interviewed him twice, I think, but a few years apart. But yeah, God, it was one of my
we'll definitely
favourites.
That off, because that's got to be comedy gold. I'm going for Series 3. I mean, I couldn't believe it started in 1962. Can you believe that?
No, I can't.
So we're going for 1964. Series 3. I'll explain next week why I've gone for this, and it's quite bizarre and selfish, but what the hell, we could have gone for any of them. They're all good. Series 3, Episode 7 of Steptoe and Son, and it's called The Lodger.
Oh, that's odd in itself, and it's Episode 7. It's normally a set of 6, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Al Queer again.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go for one of the particularly miserable early black and white ones. I think, colour was just too gimmicky for this show. For proper, authentic, original misery, you can't do better than a 1960s black and white version of Steptoe and Son.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Because misery is very much part of the sit, isn't it?
I think so. So
yeah, I can kind of go with that. All right, then, looking forward to that one. I can't believe it when you said it. I mean, where are we? 209.
Yes,
and we've not done Steptoe. We want our bums
it's a glaring omission, I think is the phrase. Yeah,
we want a good kick up the keister.
Happy to plug that gap now.
Or a good kick up the key store. I don't know which one it is, but yeah. Yes. So it only remains for us to say thank you very much for your company. I do appreciate you being with us. Don't forget there is a huge back catalogue there's 208, obviously, isn't there? Because this is episode 209.
I think so.
And you're more than welcome to go and peruse and let us know what you think. We'd really appreciate that as well. So from me and Schnooky Lumps, can I just say, my favourite line, we didn't mention it, I'm going to say, he was fighting with the two guys and he went, look out, he's got a bat. Look out, he's got a bar. Look out, he's got a gun. Look out, he's got herpes. And the guy came towards him with his lips going,
oh, yeah, and that was a big anxiety in the early 80s. I thought you were going to go for the previous line, which was, he's got a signed Picasso.
Oh, yeah.
Which has got to go down in comedy history as well. Can't be too many lines like that.